Good Monday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center watching a severe thunderstorm warning remaining in effect until about 3:45 p.m. for the St. Augustine area. The storminess is really right over town right now, right over the beaches as well. So just got to be really careful here as we're looking east of 95. That's where we were kind of pinpointing that threat here today. Us here in the Weather Center, of course, watching things, just trying to keep you up to date on what's going on here and just monitoring things as we go on over toward our other mode of the Doppler radar and look at our velocity mode here. You can see looking at some of that wind in here getting toward areas there around, it looks like, as I get down the street level map, and even St. Francis Street, for instance, getting into some of this also over toward Old Curie Road there. So just got to be kind of cognizant of this potential Anastasia Park Drive here with this as well. So I just want to be really careful in this area as we go ahead and zoom back out. This storm has kind of been intensifying over this spot here over the last few minutes since the warning was issued. Even you can see that purple really starting to show on up. So just got to be really careful. Remember, when thunder roars, you want to go indoors, and you can see these different lightning strikes showing up here. Some different lightning strikes in the vicinity. Some of that acts in near State Highway 312. Looking over toward, it looks like areas there on A1A as well. So just got to really be careful here on this Monday afternoon, beginning of that work week. But again, a severe storm warning in Plato, 345 for that damage and wind potential. Severe thunderstorm there east movement there about 10 miles an hour, so not moving too much. We're talking about St. Augustine Beach here. So getting over towards St. Augustine shores, Butler Beach, Villano Beach, St. Augustine South, South Ponte Vedra, as well as Crescent Beach, Anastasia, and DuPont Center. So just for your protection, according to the Weather Service here, they're talking about just make sure you move to that interior room here if you don't feel safe where you're at in this situation, making sure that you're just protecting yourself from maybe some quarter-size hail even. That's possible when you have that purple swing up on radar. That's indicative of that hail potential here, and then you saw on velocity some brighter colors in there as well. Maybe not as bright as what you would sometimes see, but the reason we're a little more concerned is I know we just had a gust reported not too long ago to the south here in Flagler County, a gust that was relatively strong there around 307. This was coming in at Chat Session 47 miles an hour, and the storms down there not as impressive looking even. So just kind of giving us an idea here of that potential maybe for some of this wind to be reaching the surface as we're looking up towards St. Augustine. So looking back on in toward the St. Augustine area, you see here on A1A, getting into some of the worst of the acts in here. So just remember, again, those safety tips for lightning. You might want to even unplug some of your electrical devices as well because of that lightning danger here in this region. Because lightning, as the Weather Service talks about a lot, one of the nation's #1 leading killers. So you just have to be really careful here in terms of that threat here. One of the nation's nature's leading killers. So just have to be really careful. You just want to be really cognizant of what's going on. As we zoom back on out just a little bit now, you see toward Flagler County. You're watching some of that lightning there, I-95 there as well. Keeping our eyes on the situation toward the south. So just want to be watching that as we see some intensifying wind now in Duval County. Last few frames, you see some brighter colors now showing up, so maybe closer to getting a warning there as we're looking off toward the west, and we're even over 295 there now with that latest radar scan. So winds up in that 40-mile-an-hour range, maybe even a little bit higher in spots, 46 miles an hour, showing up there near, it looks like Winterwood Circle West. So I just want to be cognizant here. Just have to be ready there to go ahead and move inside with the storminess moving in here towards some of these different spots. I mean, really already should be inside based on some of the heavier rain toward downtown, but even gustier winds here moving into the picture with that lightning danger. So we're looking over now toward the south. You do see here some lightning between Middleburg and Doctor's Inlet there in Clay County. So just have to be kind of cognizant of the potential there. Storm in southeast Georgia. I've been watching it for a while. It was over there earlier off toward the west. We were kind of seeing things with that, seeing how it was evolving as we were looking west of Interstate 95 and as we go to the live view. You don't see too much luckily in velocity though, so that's good news. Maybe kind of weakening on out some, but down toward the south again, a severe thunderstorm warning remaining in effect for another 15 minutes for the St. Augustine area. So just got to be careful there. North Matanzas Boulevard in here as well. Watching that threat, seeing different significant weather advisories popping on up here in the Weather Center. Different threats here popping up across different portions of the region. Nothing else severe at the moment, but still just have to be watchful here of what can happen. What can happen with these storms? I know off toward the west, even like I was saying, a new significant weather advisory just popping up. That's actually out toward areas around Albany, Tallahassee, some storminess in play as well. And I'll pull that radar up here in just a moment to show you what's going on. We'll switch over to the Tallahassee radar because we'll get a better vantage point on what's going on as we kind of go under the hood to see some of the wind velocity values. So, in fact, I do have this now pulled up here just north of Crawfordville. It looks like we're tracking some of this potential. So let's go ahead now and go on over toward radar scope, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Switching on over, you see some of this brighter coloration showing on up in the software. So this is south of the radar sites. This is wind about 40 miles an hour. So moving toward the airport in Tallahassee at that general vicinity over the next little bit. As we go up toward the north, we'll go on over here toward the Fort Rucker radar. We'll see what's going on with the significant weather advisory for the Albany area now until about, it looks like 4:15 or so. So just kind of seeing some of that stronger wind move into the picture here this afternoon. Got to be cognizant of that threat, obviously, here with that thunder, with that lightning in play. Looking back here again toward the St. Augustine area, you see some of that storminess right at the coast. Sometimes don't break in for this because it's going to move off in a pretty short order, but this accident's been hanging around the coast for a little while now, and that forecast was here for I-95 and areas there in that I-95 corridor area to have to be on guard here today for that strong storm threat, maybe some isolated severe weather even here. As we zoom back on out a little bit, you see Duval County now looking there, some wind pretty high, even though we're actually getting pretty low. I mean, there's a good chance we're getting winds about 50 down to the surface here around 295 in Jacksonville. Could get a warning for parts of Duval County here pretty soon. So got to be cognizant. Looking more like just a straight line wind versus downburst, meaning could occur over a little bit bigger area here, maybe a little bit more in duration as well. So as we get down towards St. Augustine, though, you can see here some of this wind around St. Augustine, Volano Beach. Not really strong colors here, not indicative of too high of winds, but still you have to just be careful here. You have some of this lightning here in play. I had to report there earlier with the velocity values, not all that impressive, with a gust of 47 in the Palm Coast area. So just conventional wisdom would say maybe it's a brighter colors indicative, maybe a little stronger winds, and that could get you to a quick gust to maybe 58 and an isolated spot or two, and then a gust there in that 50 range in other regions there around St. Augustine possible. So you just never know. I haven't got any reports in, so it may have not ended up verifying like that, but even just one report of some damage here and a warning would verify. So just got to go ahead and look here again at our rainfall amounts here as you're looking here on our reflectivity, and in terms of the 1 hour rainfall totals in themselves, you do see here around US Highway 1 about 1.5 inches or so, getting over toward the west, some nasty accident there between Russell and Green Cove. US 17, we're talking about 2 inches or so in the last hour. And the rainfall amounts are going to start picking up into Jacksonville here over the next little bit, so giving you guys a heads up in Duval County. As Weather Service is now talking about here in the chat session, that numerous boundaries and storms are beginning to converge around the west side of Jacksonville there, and they expect further intensification of the storms through 4 p.m. So, gotta always watch out in these situations as well. When you have multiple boundaries here, with multiple boundaries in play, you could always get a quick spin here within a storm, like a spinning top. I'm not necessarily expecting that, but we just got a new warning in play for parts of Duval and Nassau counties until 4:15. So we were kind of giving a heads up here a moment ago, and now a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Duval and Nassau counties until 4:15. So that'll pop up here momentarily on this source, and it's a very large area. So let me go ahead and I think we can pull this up over into GR Earth, and there it is. That really big polygon here, a high population here. With this severe thunderstorm warning in place. So just got to be careful as we're watching that 60-mile-an-hour wind potential, maybe some nickel-sized hail in here as well. East Central Nassau and then Duval counties under this warning here till about 4:15. At 3:35. The severe thunderstorm was located there over Normandy, or 7 miles west, it looks like here, of Jacksonville, moving off toward the northeast at 15, so a slow mover. Jacksonville, Fernandina Beach, Jacksonville International Airport, UNF, Mandarin, Arlington, Yulee, as well as Neptune Beach, Bay Meadows, and Cisco Gardens, all under this warning. So, again, a very large warning here for this threat of storminess toward Jacksonville. Maybe some severe weather occurring toward Duval County now. So let's go ahead and go back on over to velocity. You do see here some of our brighter colors showing up here as we get down to street level map, and Hurlong Road in there. In fact, I'll go ahead and see if we can put a mouse on the screen, so bear with me, and you'll be able to kind of see where I'm talking with some of this action now. So checking on some of this potential here, watching things pretty carefully in this area. Actually, I guess the mouse isn't going to pop up right away. We'll switch back on over to a different mode for a second and see what we can do there. But again, watching things pretty carefully here. I'm monitoring the situation in the weather center. Let's go ahead and now see if we get the mouse up. You can see it on the screen at this point. County Road 213 there. So again, Hurlong Road, as we were just referencing there, over toward, it looks like 4 Acre Road. Getting some of these different roads in here to let you know exactly what to expect with some of the stronger wind, and it's moving off toward the northeast. So I-10 there, about to be getting a little bit more of this here over the next few minutes as we're getting closer even toward downtown Jacksonville. May just miss downtown Jacksonville, but it's a really close call. So you got to be really careful there. Lightning may not, as we're starting to get a downburst signature, even though I think more straight line winds. That's a downburst signature trying to develop here, folks. Within all that, it looks like not 100%, but just got to be cognizant of this danger. We just have the warning for St. John's go off the board as more of that action now moving away from areas there just along the coast and more getting into toward those open waters now versus being actually at the beaches here to cause some issues. That warning will be going away here momentarily, but again, a very large severe thunderstorm warning for Duval County now in play with these boundaries. You can get things to happen very quickly here in toward Jacksonville with some isolated damage potential. So you got to be on guard here toward Jacksonville. As we zoom back on in now, you do see Moonflower Road also getting over toward, it looks like Justin Road in here. Again, maybe a developing downburst signature or something to that regard there. North Misty Meadow Court. Might end up getting some power outages in this vicinity. Normandy Boulevard in here with some pretty high winds potentially. So again, severe thunderstorm warning. Now this isn't the worst severe thunderstorm I've ever seen, obviously, but still a pretty nasty one here to be in a high populated area. It's more impressive than what we saw yesterday for sure toward Jacksonville with the severe thunderstorm warning that was in play there earlier on in toward the daytime hours. So as we zoom back on out, you can see here just so much rain occurring. Let's go ahead and get our baseball grounds camera pulled on up there to see what's happening, a visual on the situation. And you see the dark skies there, folks. Top left of the screen. I mean, those are some pretty scary looking clouds. That's what I guess you can call it sometimes, even in the meteorological world. So again, just be aware there of the nastiness, the storminess, the danger there of some gusty winds, maybe damaging winds, that lightning in play here as well. So that's the view out of Jacksonville right now off the WeatherStim camera. Again, a severe thunderstorm warning here in play until 4:15 for parts of Duval and Nassau counties, much of Duval, some of Nassau. That's kind of a takeaway there. With the threat, as we're talking about many of the areas in Jacksonville under this severe thunderstorm warning. So let's go ahead. We'll take a break here in just a moment, but we're sticking with this a little bit more because of the high population density here and the situation, how it's kind of coming together here over Jacksonville this afternoon. As we look away now, as we're at peak intensity of the storms, we'll go ahead and move away now from our baseball grounds camera and take you back on over to the Doppler radar. You see all this lightning here in play, frequent lightning occurring. That can be a hazard this time of year. You can get some type house fire situations to arise, even as you look here, maybe some small hail, even as we're getting toward Hurlong Road. Keep pointing you guys out in that vicinity, but also watching State Highway 228 in here as well. So fifth thunderstorm warning is more about this area right in here versus what's already around the downtown area per se. It's really axing off toward the south and west here. Things look to be kind of expanding a little bit, strengthening a little bit more, getting those pixels about 53 miles an hour now, showing on up. As we're pretty low to the surface even, so that's something to be concerned about. Could have some damage here around 295, so again, just be weather aware and go ahead and take those thunderstorm warning precautions in here. As I look at our storm relative velocity mode, we're not really seeing as much of that wind going in opposing directions, indicative of a downburst. That's good. Maybe again more just winds going in the one direction here as the storminess moves on off toward the northeast here at about 15 miles an hour or so. So just again, be cognizant of what's going on. I see a bunch of different significant weather advisories coming on out from the Weather Service, Gadsden, Liberty off toward the west as well. Not any severe weather with that right now though, but again, excuse me, I just got to be cognizant here of what can go on in these situations. I know we had some damage reports up towards Suwannee County earlier. We'll keep you up to date. That was before we had any type of severe thunderstorm warnings in place. This is the second one of the day. The first one down towards St. John's, we jumped on for that a moment ago. But again, be careful with the lightning. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more information as this severe thunderstorm warning continues for another 33 minutes or so. Back here in the Weather Center, still watching the severe thunderstorm warning, continuing here till about 4:15 for parts of Duval, much of Duval really, and then Nassau under this, a chunk of that as well. So just got to be really cognizant here. Some really heavy rain, maybe some small hail and gusty winds mixing in here with this axe. And so you see this right around I-10. Pretty treacherous driving out there with the wind, with the rain, maybe some small hail in there, as they're mentioning there, right at 295 and I-10, in fact. So just some really nasty weather in general there. You see that as we go between the different modes of the radar, and I just kind of got another scan in there, and you're seeing more of this translate off toward the north now. It seems some of the accent further down, maybe weakening though. We could also be having a situation where the airport radar there might be having a little bit tougher time seeing things now that that rain is coming down just so heavy all around toward the southern side of things. So again, watching this carefully, checking in with the chat session for the latest information. We'll go ahead and zoom back on out now. Zoom back on in, just trying to get a grasp on what's going on. And we're back in another 2.5 minutes with more information. Back here to continue covered now, still watching severe thunderstorm warning in play, getting some really heavy rain here in Duval County and Jacksonville, making things pretty treacherous out there as we're looking at some of our velocity modes here on the Doppler radar as well. I see a marine warning just came out for some of those areas as we're looking off toward the east, but looking at some of our different camera views behind the scenes, I know, again, pretty nasty out there for those trying to get out and about. In fact, let's go ahead, we'll switch you away from our mode here right now with the radar, and I do want to go ahead and show what's going on there. We have, it looks like I-10 at 295 west northbound here. So let me go ahead and pop that camera view up right here. You'll be able to see what's going on there with what is happening there on the roadways. So just again, nasty, maybe not into some of the worst wind at this point in this area, maybe already kind of getting past that, but you do see just all of that extra water there on the road it's pretty easy to see that. So just be cognizant of what's going on. So some lightning in play as well. So give you that look there at the Florida 511 camera. Well, now move away from that as just trying to give you guys a look at what's going on outside with the situation with this severe weather threat into Jacksonville. Looking at the latest power outage numbers here, seeing if there's anything new coming on out. We don't have anything at this moment. Last check, not too many outages at all toward the first coast, but that can change pretty quickly here with a storm in play covering this big of an area. A lot more impressive than what we saw here yesterday in terms of the coverage of the nastiness in toward Jacksonville. May end up getting one of those flood warnings here in play as well, based on how things are moving pretty slow. Pretty high rainfall rates in here as well, over an inch already. I know as we're looking at some different modes here, different modes of the radar, you do see here over an inch or so popping on up, and these rainfall amounts are still continuing to be added on to. So zooming back out, you see the word historic, not much going on right now, so that's great news obviously here in Bradford County. But as we look down toward the south and the east, you do see areas there in toward parts that looks like a Lake County, Volusia County, some pretty nasty action going on there. Maybe some wind enhancement even as we're looking there north of Astor Park, west of Pearson. This is out of the viewing area for now, but it's moving into the viewing area. That's why I'm showing that to you. So Crescent City, giving you guys a heads up there. And you see even there west of DeLeon Springs as well, getting into some of this in toward parts of Volusia County. So just going to be watching to see how things kind of hold together. Already seen some storminess in this area, so maybe this action won't be able to hold together too much, but you just never know this time of year. It's really just depending about what happens at a very localized level. It's really hard to forecast overall. Again, we're watching maybe that potential run the I-95 corridor today. Well, this is Jacksonville doing a great job talking about that threat, but as we get in here, as we get here north side of Jacksonville now, it looks like this is where some of the strongest winds at. Now, I will preface that with saying the radar is getting really heavy rainfall, so maybe obscuring exactly where the worst of this is some. So just really around Jacksonville, got to take precaution. At thunder, maybe this time of year, I mean, that's probably your best warning signal here for what can happen in this type of situation. Just have to be really kind of cognizant of what's going on, and when you hear that, you want to go inside. You want to take some of those precautions. Maybe not a severe storm in some cases. Of course, this is here. It looks like with what's happening toward Jacksonville, but other areas this time of year, lightning can be dangerous, can be deadly. Don't need a warning for a deadly situation to arise from that electrical danger. So just got a report in 43 mile an hour gusts here. From back at 310 now toward areas around Mayport. A 43 mile an hour gust there. That's Huguenot Park to be precise. So as we zoom back on out a little bit, kind of on the periphery there, some of this maybe from some different areas, really what we're talking about toward the east side of town there. But as we get in toward areas of Jacksonville, once again, you see these very high rainfall rates coming on down Driftwood Creek Drive there over toward it looks like Crystal River Road in here as well. Victoria Landing Drive in this. So a lot of different communities, different roads, different businesses being impacted by this heavy rainfall. As we look here at the 1 hour amounts, again seeing some of these red spots indicative of closer to 2 inches. So just have to be kind of watchful there. As we zoom back on out, once again, I know you guys may be watching off toward the west. So let me go ahead and give you guys an update if you're looking toward Albany, for instance, because there's some storminess in that vicinity as well. Not severe yet, may not become severe, but as this morning, by the way, for Duval, they just sent out a statement continuing at 4:15. But let's pop up our radar scope source now. We'll kind of see what's going on off toward the west here. You do see some brighter pinks going on up on the screen here as we're looking west of Albany, getting into some of that higher wind maybe in toward Doherty County. So that's 45 mile an hour wind showing up right there. I just have to be careful, maybe getting some of that down toward the surface in at least some of these spots, maybe not the exact spot where the pixel is, but in the general vicinity. You see some purples even showing up, maybe indicative of maybe pea-sized hail, something like that as well. And as we get down toward the Big Bend of Florida, I'll go over the Tallahassee radar now. You'll be able to see what's going on here you were to kind of get a grand scheme of an idea here for the wind, which is picking up. It looks like southwest of Greensboro now, 44, 45 miles an hour, give or take. Here as we're looking from Liberty County into Gadsden, so that could be a candidate for a warning if that were to pick up a little bit more off toward the west. I'll be watching to see how that tracks in toward areas around Quincy over the next little bit. As we are just getting word now, I was kind of concerned about this danger, and we're now getting word, in fact, as we go on over toward the area viewpoint a little bit. Let's just zoom out all the way here toward Flagler County now. A lightning strike at the Hammock area, 3-Bay Drive, a 2-story set struck by lightning, a working fire in progress there. They're working the fire in progress. It looks like with Flagler County and Palm Coast Fire Rescue on scene. So have to be careful there. Obviously, that lightning danger, a building being struck there toward Flagler County. That's coming in from emergency management. So that's in the chat session here with the Weather Service in Jacksonville. So just have to be careful this time of year of what can go on when you have those different strikes impacting different communities around. So again, this is the whole area viewpoint. We're closer to 4 o'clock now. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. You see some of our different storms in play. When you have these little, I guess you could say, greenish looking triangles on the screen, those are indicative of smaller hail areas popping on up potentially. Now those can be helpful more, not just for hail, but just to say how strong a storm is in general. And right now it looks like some of the worst of the action is in toward Duval County. Maybe a second place storm right now is toward Dougherty County. Third place storm toward Liberty County there in toward our area. That storm toward Volusia Lake County actually maybe a little bit stronger than the one off toward Liberty, but you kind of get the idea. Also watching a storm just outside of the area in Bacon County that's pretty strong as well, Bacon County, Georgia. But just keeping you up to date on what's going on here. Almost the top of the hour, watching things in the chat, looking at the latest updates, seeing what's going on here. We're just trying to make sure you guys stay ahead of the storms. This afternoon thunderstorm action. It's that time of year here. We're watching things in the Weather Center. Look at some of our different viewpoints, and I even have, excuse me, one of our cameras here that we can go to in just a moment. Let me go ahead and make sure we have a good look at that before we pop it on into the system. But we have our own camera in this dark area looking off toward the west. Luckily, things pretty calm right now towards dark, but we'll go ahead and kind of reset with that, I guess, here as we get toward the 4 o'clock time frame. You do see here some of the darker skies trying to mix in there, but right now things pretty calm around dark. That's great news, but that doesn't mean it's going to always be calm. Might end up having storms make up for what we haven't seen later today, tomorrow. You never know this time of year. We'll be here in the Weather Center and streaming if necessary, depending on how things kind of go. But as we look on over now, once again, toward the Doppler radar technology, again, you see the lack of action toward north central Florida, which good news, really, considering what we've seen with the area rivers and river flood warnings still in play. So just something to kind of bear in mind as we've been talking about here over the last few weeks, really. We talked about it with Elsa, of course. Still got to watch that, but luckily the river stage is not as big of a concern. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of that information, in fact, here behind the scenes while we're on. Might take another break here in a moment. We'll see what the Weather Service tells us here in just a few seconds as well. But we are seeing a less worrying situation here in terms of the area of rivers. The numbers dropping off toward the Santa Fe as you see some of those different indicators on the screen. In fact, I'll go ahead and point those out for you here. Let me put the mouse on the screen once again. You do see some of these down toward the Santa Fe River. Now we're talking about minor flood stage versus getting toward that moderate flood stage, major flood stage threat at least. Didn't really necessarily see that, but you just got to always be watchful here this time of year, or when you deal with the tropics, deal with the combination of different things for that threat. As we just got a flood warning now, an aerial flood warning for parts of Duval County till 6 o'clock. So we were talking about that potential in Jacksonville, and now seeing that threat here maybe come to fruition with these rainfall amounts inching on up, 2 inches in the last hour in an urban area. That's not a good combination. So an aerial flood warning now until 6 o'clock here for parts of Duval County and toward Jacksonville. watching this thread, obviously, keeping you up to date on what's going on here. See all that lightning toward the airport area, making things pretty unsafe potentially out there. As the Weather Service now explaining that area of flood warning here in the chat session, they're saying storm total rainfall 1 to 2 inches across northern side of downtown Jacksonville with an additional 1 to 2 inches possible. Could be causing some flooding issues for commuters, especially near Hogan's Creek. So you have to be really careful here with that threat. And toward Jacksonville, again, the Hogan's Creek area, gotta watch out. Commuters have to watch out. As we just got a significant weather advisory now issued for parts of Flagler, Putnam counties here. That's going to 4:30. Some of that storminess getting going. You see some of those brighter colors in there. A trend of nothing too impressive. Maybe a little bit weaker than what we saw a few minutes ago even, which is good. As we were looking toward Volusia County, toward Lake County a little bit there as well. So just having to kind of deal with that, obviously. See how things go. Looks like we're getting that movement here, maybe a little more off toward the east, but seeing how that expands more to maybe toward Volusia County, but looking up toward the north here in Jacksonville, watching things carefully. The brighter colors there. It's gonna be hard to see exactly what's reaching the surface with the rain obscuring things around the radar sight. But again, watching things carefully. I also see quite a bit of lightning there right along the coast in Glenn County, Georgia, close towards Sea Island there. So having to deal with that. But in the north central northeast Florida, the big danger right now is that storm in Duval County, that storminess in Duval County. So we'll continue to watch things, continue to give you the latest updates, obviously, here in the Weather Center. Looking at some of our latest information coming on out. We do have the storms off toward the west. I was talking about toward Albany, toward Gadsden County as well. So let me go ahead and switch you on over toward a different view. You see here toward Dougherty County, stronger accent in play there. So just remember when thunder roars, you want to go indoors. You see some of the storminess near Chattahoochee, then off toward the south here. Going to move it in toward Gadsden a little bit further here, a little bit later on. So we'll see how it kind of holds together. You see here the grand scheme of things with this rain in play. Storm Prediction Center today, just a general thunderstorm outlook here. So not expecting widespread severe weather, but an isolated severe weather this time of year is a unique characteristic to North Florida and South Georgia, really, and even other parts of Florida as well, of course, but you get the idea. Pretty small area here where you can just get storminess to kind of just pop up. It's not what you would necessarily see in Missouri, where just for example, up there you would have to pretty much have more organized threats here for that accent to come together. It wouldn't just kind of pop up on you, at least here, like what you'll see this time of year. You have to have some more well-defined things to happen. I mean, it can still be kind of suppressing. I know following along up there late last week, not really expecting some of what happened there with some heavier rainfall setting up along some boundaries, but in general here, this time of year is more unpredictable and more unpredictable than what you see in other parts of the country as we get toward the first coast region. But we do and can predict here that threat, like we talked about here. That 95 corridor was being pinpointed by the Weather Service in Jacksonville, so just have to watch toward the first coast. Looking down here toward Lake and Volusia, again, pretty strong storminess there. Toward Jacksonville, you see near 295, watching some of this I-95 in there, still tracking that potential right over the airport. So let's see if we get a gust there. I'll go ahead and pop up some of our wind information here, so at least get something in here on that. That's to kind of tell us what's going on here at the airport. I'm sure the cooler there as well now with some of this heavier rain in play. So just continuing to monitor this situation. 28 miles an hour, the latest update from the airport there. That's a gust, it looks like, as of about 3:56 or so. So just kind of monitoring that. Some of these other numbers a little bit earlier on. Keep you updated. Be back in just a couple minutes with more information to see what the Weather Service does with this warning. Back here in the Weather Center and looking at some of those different power outage numbers behind the scenes, seeing what's going on toward Jacksonville. 378 customers in the dark here as the latest update from JEA last few minutes. So gonna go ahead and keep our eyes on those numbers. Of course, that's a very small percentage. It looks like according to PowerOutage.us of the 466,396 customers tracked. So that's some great news, obviously, here. But just keeping our eyes, keeping tabs on the numbers there as we see what happens with this warning going for another 5 minutes or so for parts of Duval and Nassau counties. Severe thunderstorm located near Jacksonville, moving off toward the northeast at 15 miles an hour. Got to watch out for continuous cloud-to-ground lightning that's occurring with this storm. Remember, moving doors immediately. Lightning is one of nature's number one leading killers here. And remember, if you can hear thunder, you're close enough to be struck by lightning. And then we have torrential rainfall occurring with this storm, and that might lead to some flash flooding, so do not drive your vehicle through flooded roadways. Some different tips there from the Weather Service in Jacksonville. You see some stronger wind now moving up into parts of maybe Nassau County along I-95. So we'll have to see how this kind of maybe impacts Yulee over the next little bit. Aerial flood advisory I see now for Dougherty County, Georgia. We'll keep you up to date. Be back in a couple minutes with more. Back here in the Weather Center, about 4:13 or so. We'll see if this warning gets expanded toward the north, as we are seeing some stronger winds coming up now toward parts of Nassau County, I was referencing a moment ago here. But these are close to the surface, indicative of maybe a higher confidence in exactly what type of winds occurring, because these are set up around 40 miles an hour. And guess what? We just had a report there toward JIA down toward the south and west of 41 miles an hour. So giving you an idea, that might be more the type of wind we're seeing here with the accent moving into toward Nassau County. But I guess you can't rule out a quick gust here a little bit stronger than that in this vicinity. So we'll watch to see what happens. And then I was talking about that flood advisory for parts of Dougherty County, Georgia here, watching the threat of some heavier rainfall in that area. So let me go ahead and give you guys a heads up on what's going on there. Let me switch over to the Fort Rutger radar to see what is happening in that vicinity there. You'll be able to kind of get an idea of what is happening in toward parts of southwestern Georgia. You do see here some of this heavier rain right around Albany. I know they're prone to flooding their urban areas. So, looking over the last hour or so in terms of rainfall, you do see here some updates coming on in terms of these amounts. I mean, this is at least an inch showing up in this region, but some spots maybe even a little bit more than that. As we just got a new warning, folks. Just got a new warning for areas further off in the ward parts of the First Coast. We just got this update now till 5 o'clock for parts of Duval, Nassau, and in Camden County, even in southeastern Georgia. Weather Service doesn't want to let the warning go away yet because they think there's a chance we could have some of the stronger wind getting down toward the surface. So you can see here 47 miles an hour or so as I go ahead switch you on over toward the motorway. But the mouse one would be 47-mile-an-hour wind showing up here west of it. Looks like I-95 in there, but maybe this is a little bit stronger than that. Maybe the radar's obscuring things a little. Maybe we have a quick gust in there to 58, which would be that severe criteria being met. So I have to watch out for some isolated damages. This warning now extended into ward areas like Hewley. Watching this potential here. Fernandina Beach under this, St. Mary's in Georgia. Of course, Keens Bay, base area under this as well as we get up toward the north. Of course, less than 2 weeks ago, dealing with that tornado. Not expecting anything like that today, but still some pretty strong wind can cause isolated issues that are pretty nasty. So a new warning now till 5 o'clock. Zooming back out once again. 414 is a thunderstorm is located near JIA, Jacksonville International Airport. Moving off toward the northeast at 20 miles an hour. St. Mary's, Fernandina Beach, Keens Bay Base, Jacksonville International Airport, Yulee, Ocean Way, Little Talbot Island, Cumberland Island, all under this warning. So for your protection, move to an interior room on the lowest floor of the building there. We have a lot of lightning in play here right around I-95, so it's pretty nasty driving there on 95 as you're going between Duval and Nassau counties right now. Just really don't want to be out on the road with all this heavy rain and wind. Maybe some small hail in here as well. Well, this is talking maybe up to 3/4 of an inch in diameter, give or take penny-sized hail. So just want to be watching out for that threat. The rest of the storms don't look too intense right now. We were looking over toward Albany a moment ago. I was looking at the velocity toward Gaston County as well. Not as impressive though. They have seen quite a bit of rain over there southwest of Greensboro, about 2 inches or so in the last hour, according to radar estimates. Again, give or take there. We just had a new aerial flood warning issued for parts of Duval County as well. So have to be kind of watching out for that here as we're looking on in, watching the ward parts of Jacksonville. A new aerial flood warning coming on out, and I'm seeing that pop up. I know there's been some data issues here today. Most of our data is working good, but there was some issues here earlier on as we were looking toward some of those sources. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind. There are a couple flood warnings in play, not flash flood warnings, not what we saw off toward parts of Tallahassee where we broke in yesterday, but the lower type of flood warning. Still, though, in an urban area around rush hour, we have to be concerned a little bit for that danger. Some of these brighter colored indicative of 2.5-inch rainfall amounts here as we get down toward Cleveland Road there, and then as we get further up toward the north, some of those areas could expect pretty similar amounts there near I-95 in Jacksonville. So watching for upscale growth on this storminess. Kind of cluttered in here, but maybe a little bit of that still went up there in some different spots. So keep on watching that. We'll do that here in the Weather Center back in about 5 minutes or so with more weather information. Again, a new severe thunderstorm warning has been issued now until about 5 o'clock or so for parts of Duval, Nassau, and Camden counties here toward the First Coast and also southeastern Georgia. back here in the Weather Center watching storms still at 4:23. Severe thunderstorm warning continuing for parts of Duval, Nassau, Camden counties till 5 o'clock here. So a pretty long fuse threat still as we're looking toward I-95 here in parts of the region. Again, I see that some hail threat, but we're really watching for that wind potential, that lightning threat, maybe the biggest concern, with already getting a report down toward the south a little while ago here of some issues. In fact, there toward Flagler County area, 3 miles southeast of Marineland, the lightning strike caused some issues there at a 2-story storage shed along Bay Drive and caused a fire. So have to just be aware of that danger as we get back into toward parts of Jacksonville. So the thunderstorm warning continuing. You see some stronger wind and these brighter colors showing on up. So we have to be watching here as we get down toward US 17, just off toward the east of that here. From about, it looks like some of these different roads in here as I get down the street level map and seeing if we can get some of these to show up State Highway 200A maybe from that area, looking all the way up here toward, it seems, maybe toward that Camden County border even. So still watching things, still tracking things. Let's go ahead and zoom back on out just a little bit. Excuse me, still watching things here with this accent here in toward that First Coast region. You can see not much else going on right now, which is great news, obviously. You can see, though, that I back things up a little bit on velocity. Some of that wind popping on out just a little bit here. So something interesting to watch how that stronger pixel kind of settling up pretty close to the surface. The weather service kind of concerned here, watching for that danger as we look maybe again towards St. Mary's. A lot of these streets not showing up, but we're looking right around Yulee here. Some of the worst of this right now, some very heavy rain, some lightning popping on up around Yulee, maybe the worst of the wind just moving away, but can't guarantee that for sure. So, of course, with that lightning, that's really dangerous, as we've talked about. So just remember, when thunder roars, you want to go indoors. We talked about that this morning on our update. And then you also just want to keep in mind when you have that area maybe covered in water, a road covered in water, you just want to remember to turn around, don't around here. Another mantra there by the National Weather Service. So let me go ahead and zoom back on out. Still looking at some different things. Down toward Flagler County, some storminess here and play around Pearson. Looking down there to see how things can kind of go and kind of evolve. And then again, right around I-95, we're watching this carefully. I'll go ahead and kind of put a loop on this. Might skip around some, depending on if we switch some radars. I don't know if I actually have switched radars too much here because we've been focused more in the Jacksonville area. We're going back a while, so let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit here. You can kind of see what's going on toward the First Coast region as they're putting things into motion and watching what's going on. You see Augusta earlier to 32 and toward the Keystone area, and you see how things kind of came together. The warning towards St. Augustine, and then you see how toward Jacksonville we had some of this storminess come into play, and now it's going on up, going east here, a little bit of 95. So we were tracking at St. Augustine, 30 east to 95. Some of this was west to 95 here earlier, though. And you see how things kind of coalesced around Jacksonville. Has been going up toward the north and east. So hopefully we can get this off the coast here eventually and wrap this coverage up. But right now we need to stick with you to keep you, your friends, and your family safe on this Monday afternoon, getting the word out Monday evening. As this episode is now talking about the storm there over northern Duval and eastern Nassau, strengthening with damaging wind gusts and flooding rainfall potential, expanding toward the St. Mary's area, Keens Bay, base area, and just west of Fernandina with base velocities at near 45 knots, headed straight for St. Mary's from the south-southwest with some damaging wind potential. So there it is. This is what they're talking about. They're using the same type of technology we're using here in the Weather Center, and you see that moving right towards St. Mary's over the next couple minutes. So I just have to be cognizant of this threat. We're looking right there in toward parts of northern Nassau County again. That wind's moving right towards St. Mary's, so give me that heads up here. We'll zoom out just a little bit. You see Becker there, and you see that wind is sliding right on in here towards St. Mary's. Pixels 51, 52 miles an hour. So on up in here as we just got another update. Maybe just a little bit lower, but again, that wind's moving towards St. Mary's. It's pretty clear here as we go between the different modes here of the different scans, and you can kind of see that's kind of coming right on into town there towards St. Mary's. So some damaging wind possible in towards southeastern Georgia. Looking last hour, rainfall rates not catching up too much in some spots, but you see other spots here close toward the coast. 3 inches in the last hour because of some of that rain that's moved on through, depending on exactly where you're at. Got to watch some of those immediate coastal areas as we look on in here once again. Again, I know some of you aren't accustomed to our velocity mode, but when we see the brighter colors, that's indicative of stronger wind here. And where I have my mouse is where some of the brighter colors, some of the strongest winds may be occurring. Looks like a Roses Bluff Road there. Roses Bluff Road in here. Also looking here towards some of these other area roadways as well. So again, St. Mary's in the line of fire for some winds in the word at least at 50 range. Maybe some winds even a little bit stronger than that, depending on what's coming down to the surface. As we look at ZR, I know this is really confusing, but you see a little bit of upscale growth even here. So that's something to watch out for. This storm strengthening, that's what the surface was talking about. So got to watch out as we go over to the echo tops now. You see some higher tops here to an extent, but part of this being obscured by the Jacksonville radar. But still pretty impressive to see that right around St. Mary's there. As we zoom back out just a little bit there on the Doppler radar. Again, looking at some different modes, vertically integrated liquid here, just seeing how things are evolving on the different viewpoints here. As we kind of, I know we repeat ourselves quite a bit here in this coverage, but we want to just keep you up to date on what's going on here as things that do bear repeating sometimes. As we're looking again toward 95, toward parts of southeast Georgia, even just east of 95 around St. Mary's there. In toward Camden County, Georgia. We just dealt with a tornado less than 2 weeks ago there toward Keens Bay, and now some weaker weather coming in, but still could be some isolated damaging weather. As we zoom back out once again, it's 4:30, the bottom of the hour. Meteorologist Casey Cloud continuing the coverage. Luckily, haven't had any damage reports necessarily for damage and wind gusts, I don't think, today. Doesn't mean some of those couldn't be delayed, but we have had some lightning damage reports. One of those there we were getting in was in the Flagler County area. So that report there was being sent on in there by the emergency management in Flagler County, as we do see. Again, a 41-mile-an-hour wind gust was reported at JIA at 404, but that's not severe criteria, so that's the good news. But still watching some strong storms here in the vicinity. Again, maybe not getting these winds all the way down to the surface, but if we get some of this down to the surface, St. Mary's will be about the best spot for it in terms of that higher potential for that to actually happen. You see these higher pixels, these higher values showing up here on the scale. We're talking about winds about 50 miles an hour, give or take, moving right on in here. Conyers Street right now. This is a scan from within the last few seconds. So this is moving right into St. Mary's at the very moment. We have that heavy rain bringing some of this wind down to the surface, no doubt. Maybe not severe. We don't know yet. We'll see if there's some damage, but there definitely could be some damage here around St. Mary's in southeastern Georgia. We gave you the heads up here like we did toward Thomas County yesterday, and now seeing that potential moving in toward St. Mary's. The wind maybe not quite as strong as what we saw in Ritter toward Thomasville, but this is a different part of South Georgia, but still some winds showing up pretty strong. As we just got an update from the Weather Service to continue this. They took out Duval now, so that's good news for you guys watching from there. But if a thunderstorm located over Yulee there in general, or about 9 miles west of Fernandina, moving northeast at 20 miles an hour, we're talking about just in general, they're tracking it from that spot. But I mean, honestly, the worse the wind, they're talking about in the chat, it's more about the nomenclature when they're talking about Yulee, because the worst is really in terms of that damage and wind potential moving into St. Mary's. So a little bit confusing there in terms of the text of the warning, but that's sent out through some computer systems. They're telling us directly that St. Mary's getting that worse the wind potential. So again, we're watching here carefully. We're looking here at 50-mile-an-hour wind right around St. Mary's. We're looking at some of these rainfall amounts going on up here as well. In this vicinity, some of these yellows indicate about 2 inches in the grand scheme of things. This is the storm total amount, and you see down toward Jacksonville, some of these oranges popping up 2.5 inches, give or take. This little red area, even 3.5 inches as we get down really tight here. West Concord Boulevard just kind of goes to show that isolated nature of things here. And in Stark Bradford County, where I'm at, haven't really got any rain today. Maybe a trace, something like that, but that's about it, in fact, on the rain gauge. So maybe a little bit more than that, maybe about 6/100ths, but that's about it here toward the historic area. So just kind of coming down quickly and then moving away as I'm looking here. It looks like it does say 0.06 inches here, so that's 6/100th on that rain gauge here today, but just not seeing too much of that rainfall overall as we get back up toward the first coast. Again, looking here at the Doppler radar technology, that wind here around St. Mary's right about now, even Fernandina on the west side of town maybe, or just to the west here, as we're looking towards some of these areas that aren't really occupied, you do see there maybe some issues, but luckily we're going to be watching this go off with that easterly component here into the coastal waters in due time. We'll back this way up here. You'll be able to see these redder colors kind of come into the picture here at times. This white's for the bright greens, the bright reds here to show up. You see that bright green around Jacksonville, and once the wind's going away from the radar, turning into bright red. Nothing to do with the actual winds themselves, but you see this the wind here, bright colors is what we're looking for. It's the sort of radar is what you see different directions, but different colors. But again, you see the brightness here of things. This is the loop starting from about 2:30 or so. You see some of that in maybe Baker County, Clay County, a little bit in St. John's, but in Duval again, really watching that come up there and then go up toward the north and eventually again going off the coast. Hopefully we'll get lucky here and not have another warning, but they could extend this into word parts of Camden or even Glen, extreme eastern Glen. We'll have to wait and see, but as we get towards St. Mary's, you see some of the strong wind moving right across town, right at the very moment there. So just have to be cognizant of that. I think we'll take another quick break here in the cover with this warning continuing. It does include St. Mary's, Fernandina Beach, Keens Bay base there, Yulee, Cumberland Island as well. That lightning threat, that wind threat here, the heavy rain threat, got to be cognizant. Can have car accidents during that evening commute for sure with this type of accident. Some flood warnings in play toward Jacksonville. They're showing up a little bit better now. As we get on in, you see some of these green outlines here toward Jacksonville proper. Flood warning to 6 toward areas. This is a little further to the west till 6:15. So toward the River City there, getting some of those. Not really toward the river itself, St. John's River, but just continuing to watch things carefully there. Keeping you up to date. Not seeing too much there. The St. John's River being impacted, at least as you're getting really close down. You do see some of that area there with that danger. They were right on the south bank, for instance. So seeing how some of those different numbers add on up. A little bit more rain in toward the region there, but keeping our eyes on things, trying to give you the latest update on what's happening toward Jacksonville. Checking some power outage information. I noticed those numbers did go up a little bit. Just trying to see exactly what's going on here. Nothing new in the chat stats over the last few minutes, so that's good news, obviously. Maybe not getting any damage reports in, but as we get up toward parts here of Nassau County, still seeing some thunderstorm warning in play. Power outage numbers last check now. 4,020 in the state, 1,800 in Duval County, only one in Nassau, but that could go up some, just 21 in St. John's, 21 customers, 166 in Flagler, none in Bradford Union there, so that's good, a lot to a 31 customers in the dark, 42 in Putnam, 34 Marion, so pretty sparse, Leon 18, you kind of get the idea, except for Duval here, that's the only one that really stands out for something to have occurred in terms of some of those winds reaching the surface. So we'll take another break in the coverage. We'll be back here in a few minutes. Severe thunderstorm coverage continues on this Monday, a pretty active day around that I-95 corridor. Could have something pretty similar tomorrow as well. So we'll be watching that all for you here, and we'll be back again in just a few minutes. Back here in the Weather Center, just checking for some reports here, looking on Twitter, looking at some of our different sources with this severe weather coverage. There's not a lot happening right now here as we're looking towards some of these spots, but it doesn't mean we're not actually getting some issues to arise. We just don't have a lot coming into the Weather Center. Still pretty similar storyline to what we've been tracking here over the last little bit. So again, just wanted to keep you up to date here on what's going on, looking at things. As we're looking towards St. Mary's, you do see some of these brighter colors here in play. We'll take another break and be back in a couple more minutes. Back here in the Weather Center, still watching the severe thunderstorm warning continue until about 5 o'clock or so, so another 16 minutes or so for some of these spots. You see some brighter colors showing up here at times, getting pretty close to the coast now, so hopefully this warning will be allowed to expire here at 5 o'clock. You do see here around Grand Avenue, for instance, getting to some of the stronger wind potentially, some lightning also in play just to the east of Elliott's Bluff, and in fact, we just got another update here from the Weather Service on the warning. It took Nassau out and is now just about Camden County with the worst of the threat here, not far from St. Mary's, moving northeast at 30. Warning going for 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, penny-sized hail possible for another 16 minutes or so. So at this point, it's starting to look like we'll be kind of wrapping up our coverage pretty soon here with this storm. But let's go ahead and look to see if there's any other candidates for severe weather as we look across some other areas here. Maybe toward the south, we do have some stronger wind toward parts of Volusia, Putnam, Flagler. Nothing really impressive right now, though. There is some lightning action there. You see a significant weather advisory toward the north, but not too impressive there. Now, we do have some other radars we can go to and probably need to go to, like our Fort Rucker viewpoints. Let me go ahead and get that set back up once again. We'll do some evaluation of some of these storms towards southwestern Georgia and some of these different spots here as we look on over further off toward the west. So you see Bainbridge getting some pretty nasty action. This is non-severe there. Double check to make sure we have the latest information on in terms of significant weather advisories, and looks like we do here, but I think we might actually have an issue with some of that data not coming in, though I don't think there is one for Bainbridge here. There is a flood advisory though in play until 6:15 for parts of Gadsden, Jackson, Decatur, and Seminole. You do see some wind here, nothing extreme, but some wind there around Bainbridge on the west side of town, moving on into the picture. But as we zoom back on out here, we'll switch over to Tallahassee radar now and see what's going on down here. Looking at some of this, you don't see too much in terms of wind potential. That's good, obviously, but we'll keep you up to date. We'll keep monitoring it for you. Looking at the Moody radar, not much showing up right now. Doesn't mean we couldn't get more warnings. Do have some lightning here in play as we were just seeing pop up, but right now nothing really impressive off toward the west here as we continue to keep tabs on the situation. So let me go ahead and move away from this mode. We'll go over to our grand scheme of things and see what's happening here as we get toward that whole area view. You kind of see what's going on. That's just from a little bit earlier actually as we're looking at that viewpoint. So let me go ahead and switch back on over real quick so we can give you the latest updates here on what's happening. In fact, let me go ahead now and go back to that whole area view where we have a little bit better look at things. You do see the latest scans here coming in there. I know there's been some data issues today with some of the different sources, unfortunately, not affecting us too much here in the Weather Center at this point. We have some backup sources we can go to and things like that, but not everything coming in here exactly like what you would like here. Some issues that are going on at the overall government infrastructure there, but not something on our end there. But still going to continue to watch, continue to track things. You see, as we're tracking here, some of our small hail sizes showing on up toward maybe Bainbridge, really small, but there is lightning in place. And remember, when thunder roars, you want to go indoors here as we're looking toward Decatur County, Georgia. You see Gadsden County, not much in the way of lightning there, maybe a little bit as we're looking down toward the south near I-10 a few minutes ago, but right now not showing up in the last couple minutes at least. That's some good news, maybe some weakening there. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. But right now, things don't look too impressive. It's just that one storm right at the coast here. That warning still continuing. There's a new flood warning for parts of Duval now at 6:45. Probably more further up toward the north here. Let me check what the chat says and see what's going on in terms of this. Seeing exactly what's coming in here toward parts of Duval County. And this area of flood warning here going for areas. It looks like in northern Duval at 6:45. Flooding ongoing, expected to begin maybe shortly, but it's not. With 2 to 3 inches of rain having fallen there in North Jacksonville. So have to be watchful of that. Let's check the radar once again. I may go ahead and wrap the cover up in the next couple scans here, depending on what we're seeing within the radar. So let's go back on over to our DR level 3 source. You see 48 mile-an-hour wind right around Old House Road. So this bright pixel area moving off the coast right now here in the next minute or two, it looks like. So this is honestly a little behind even. So hopefully the next scan will have the worst of it off the coast. And if that's the case, I think it'll be time to wrap things up in terms of our coverage here. Is honestly haven't been getting that many reports in terms of wind damage or wind alerts here, so that's good. Latest scan 47 miles an hour there around Grand Avenue, so seeing some of that, but really this is right along the coast. Still can't rule out some lightning dangers. We did have the report there toward Flagler earlier with some issues there, but we've been on for about an hour and a half or so, not seeing that many reports come in for the amount of coverage and the amount of warnings we've seen here today. But of course, if there's anything else that breaks in terms of some severe weather, we'll let you know about it by either posting here on some of our different sources or maybe cutting in depending on the overall threat. We had these in higher population areas here today. That's one reason we started to come on there around St. Augustine, and then we saw the Duval accent erupt, moving on up towards southeast Florida, some pretty highly populated areas with at least some decent velocity signatures, maybe not guaranteed severe We could have had some damage around St. Mary's. It'll take a little bit more time maybe for that information to trickle on in, but that's what we're rolling because we saw the signatures just enough here to stick with it based on the population density here. Just kind of looking, it wasn't really downburst, really more of that straight line, meaning a little more consistent thread here hanging around, not just one of those 5 or 10 minute one and done type scenarios. But I know you can go to cloud_WX on Twitter for the latest automated alerts as they happen toward the Jacksonville, toward the Tallahassee County Hornet areas. I have that set up there using some sources there, the Iowa environmental mesonet, very key with that. So again, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for trusting me this afternoon. We'll go to the overall viewpoint now of the region. You'll be able to see how we have some core temperatures here in play. 79 Keystone, 76 south side of Jacksonville. A lot of areas have cooled off some, so that's good here. We'll have to see if anything else develops. Of course, tomorrow, watching that storm chance again around pretty high on that Tuesday. So again, just remember when thunder roars, you want to go indoors and don't drive toward those flooded roadways there, as that can always be a danger here as you're looking here around our region. Thanks so much for tuning in.